This lens here is the Sigma 18 to 35mm 1.8 aperture, and it came out all the way back in 2013, April of 2013. That is 7 coming up to 8 years ago, and even to this day it is still one of the best lenses that you can get for your cropped sensor or APS-C sensor cameras. And in this video I wanted to look at why, so let's get into it. Okay, so the Sigma 18 to 35mm 1.8 aperture. Now, I absolutely adore this lens. It is incredible. It is so crisp. It is built like a tank. It's just amazing. There are a couple of things I don't like about it, which I will get into, but on the whole, this is an incredible piece of kit. So anyway, to show you how good this lens is, I'm now gonna go for a walk, take some B-roll, take some pictures, and then come back here and have a final little chat about it. So yeah, let's go for a walk. Okay, so there's a nice little B-roll sequence, a few pictures, all shot completely with the Sigma 18 to 35mm 1.8. I absolutely love this lens. So hopefully that gives you an idea of what the footage actually looks like from this little lens. Well, it's not little, it's very big, but you get what I'm saying. Now, just for a bit of context, I am recording what you are seeing now on my kit lens. It is a Canon 18 to 55mm 3.5 aperture. Now, the size difference between these lenses is incredible. Now, obviously, because I'm using the kit lens, I can't show you the size difference compared to the Sigma, but to give you an idea, here is a Canon 10 to 18mm wide angle lens, which is very similar in size to the kit lens. And if I hold them together, you can see the size difference. There is a massive, massive difference. And this is very, very light compared to the Sigma. The Sigma is very heavy, but it is built like a tank. It feels very premium. The rings on it are so smooth. It feels like you could drop it and it would be absolutely fine. I don't want to risk it, but compared to the two, the EFS lens, the Canon 10 to 18mm and the kit lens just feel a bit flimsy compared to this. So this is definitely a step up on the EFS lenses. So as I mentioned at the start of this video, the Sigma 18 to 35 has a 1.8 aperture, and when it came out, it was the first zoom lens to have a continuous 1.8 aperture for a cropped sensor camera that I'm using right now. I'm using the Canon M6 Mark II, and still to this day, I don't think there is a zoom lens with a continuous 1.8 aperture for a cropped sensor camera, especially at a 1.8 aperture. That is very, very wide. So for example, the kit lens that I'm using right now starts at an aperture of 3.5, and that's what it is at right now. It gives me a fairly good depth of field. I can get a slightly blurry background, but if I zoom in, you can see it goes a lot darker. The background is a lot darker than it was before because the aperture has decreased to 5.6, and I can't get it any lower because as I zoom in, the aperture gets smaller. If I zoom back out, you can see it getting a lot brighter. Whereas with this, it's a continuous aperture, so I can stay at whatever aperture I'm at no matter where I zoom. And that makes it so much easier for when you're lining your shots up, because if you zoom in slightly, you've not got to worry about changing your aperture and then worried about all your exposures all the time, because you can keep it at that same exposure, zoom in, and know you've not got to worry about anything. So I'm going to switch over to the Sigma. I'm going to replace the kit lens on here, and I shall show you the difference between the two. I'm going to keep all the settings the same to start off with, so I will keep it at 3.5 aperture, and my ISO is down at 160. So switching over to the Sigma in 3, 2, 1. Okay, so I am now talking to you on the Sigma 18-35, and I have this zoomed out all the way to 18mm, and I have it set at 3.5 aperture on an ISO of 160. So it's not going to look too dissimilar from the kit lens that I was just using, which is now here, which you can see is a lot smaller than the Sigma. So to prove to you how much more light it lets in than the kit lens, I am now going to reduce the aperture to 1.8. Bear in mind it's now on 3.5. If I take it down all the way to 1.8, that is how much more light the Sigma lets in than the Canon kit lens. It is insane, it lets in so much more light. That is due to it having a much wider aperture. So for example, the kit lens would maybe be like that, the Sigma is like that, so you're getting a lot more light coming through the lens onto the sensor. What I can do then is I can reduce the ISO. The ISO is now at 100, so you can see that it's slightly darker. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to mess around with the aperture to try and get it looking a little bit more appealing in here, because it still looks quite bright. So 1 second. Okay, so we're now at an aperture of 2.5, and we've kind of got the balance right now. It looks a lot better. You can see we've got the nice blurry background, which is what a wider aperture gives you. On the kit lens that we were using before, you can see you did have a slightly blurry background, but this gives you a far more bigger depth of field. This is only one stop lower. We're at an aperture of 2.5 now, and the difference is massive. So yeah, it does make a huge difference. This lens is also so much crisper than the Canon kit lens. I don't know whether it's to do with the glass involved in the lens, but it just looks so much crisper. The autofocus still works perfectly. However, there is one thing I don't necessarily like about this lens when it comes to autofocus. It's still quick, it's still tracking me. However, the sound on it, very loud, and that is the one thing I don't like about this lens. So at the moment you won't be able to hear it because I've got my microphone up here off the camera, but what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pop the mic on the camera just very quickly, and I will show you what I mean. Okay, so I now have the microphone mounted on top of the camera where you would use it if you were going to be doing a vlog or something like that. If I go quiet, you can hear that creaking? That's the sound of the autofocus motor inside the lens. So if you're going to be using this to vlog with, you want to be really careful because the autofocus motor is really loud. On the kit lens and the Canon 10-18mm, the motor is silent. It is an STM motor, barely any noise at all. So if you are moving from one of these to this, just bear in mind the sound, and you will maybe want to use a wireless microphone like a lapel microphone, or take the mic off your camera like I did before and mount it on a boom pole or something like that. And now we've got the microphone back on the boom pole, so hopefully you won't be able to hear the sound of the motor through that now. I should just say as well, if you're not using an external mic and you're using the internal mic on your camera, you will be able to hear the lens noise even more. And I am back on the Canon kit lens, the 18-55, using a 3.5 aperture, and you can see that the background's not quite as blurred as you can get with a wider aperture on the Sigma. So I absolutely love this lens. I use it for pretty much everything now, apart from vlogging really, because I need a bit of a wider angle lens, and this is very heavy to vlog with. So I do use it occasionally to vlog with, just little takes, but I try to use the 10-18 if I can for all of that. The only thing I really dislike about this is how loud the motor is when you are using autofocus, because as I showed you before, you can hear all of the focus motors whirring around inside the lens, even when you're using a mic. So you have to use the mic somewhere else. But that's not really a problem because you wouldn't really use this for vlogging anyway, apart from maybe the occasional bit like I do. So hopefully that gives you an idea of what this lens is actually like. I absolutely love it. I use it for pretty much everything. Like I said, the sharpness of it is incredible. It's built like a tank and it's just amazing. It's so sharp, it looks incredible. The only other thing, no image stabilization, but the fact that it's so heavy, you can kind of use that to your advantage a little bit because you're not going to be shaking around as much as you would be if you're using like the kit lens that is on now, because there is a bit of added weight. So that's not really a problem. Again, the only problem for me is the autofocus noise, but there's ways around it. So that's it for this video. If you like what you see, click the little subscribe button just down below there. Come and be a part of this community, and I shall see you all very soon in another video.